Welcome to Momentum Investing, property investing made easy. One of the world's top podcasts on property investing, bringing you the top experts in the field so you can learn firsthand what it takes to create passive income and take control over your financial future.
What problems do experienced property investors have? After all, the goal is to buy a property, get passive income, and then just sail off into the sunset. But is that always how it is? Welcome to the Momentum Investing Podcast. We're excited to have you here. Today, we are interviewing Ben Chai, one of the most experienced property investors I know, and we're talking about what happens after you've bought the property. Because one of the questions that we often get is what happens after? Because most people, they're not thinking about that next step. You know, your goal is to get your property and start getting passive income, which is the first step. But after that, it's about continuing to build and handling the property. And there are things that can go wrong after. One that very few think about is if you buy a leasehold flat or property, there is a freeholder. And that freeholder will have a managing agent that handles the service charge and the service of the property. Well, what do you do if that managing agent starts abusing their power? And now, if you have a freehold property, does that mean you get out of the managing agent? Well, usually yes, but sometimes if you buy a property on an estate, it can be a managed estate. And what do you do if this managing agent starts abusing their power, terrorizing people, overcharging? What do you do in this situation? Well, Ben Chai shares in this episode exactly what you do once you've acquired a property to make sure that you're not caught in this type of a situation, to make sure that you're safe. And if this happens, what do you do? So it's a very, very important episode, and it's a little different from the other episodes we've done. So I hope that you stay with this the whole way through, listen, learn, and grow, because this will be an important part of your journey. So have fun. So welcome to the Momentum Investing Podcast. I am here today with none other than Ben Chai, my good friend. Welcome to the show, Ben.
Thank you, Daniel. It's a pleasure to be here.
We're super excited to have you here. I mean, I've known you for a long time. You're an incredible investor, and you've recently been going through a very interesting process, which has been horrible for you, but I think can be great for us to learn from.
You're so kind to take advantage of my misery.
I'm just trying to make sure no one else runs into that. But no, we were having a conversation. It was really interesting to hear kind of what you were doing there. So this was about the management companies of where you own leasehold flats, if I understood it correctly.
So we're talking about residential management companies. And depending on your property, it could be a flat, it could be a house. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a leasehold. It could just be in a private estate where you've got freehold properties, which you might rent out, those freehold properties. But there is a management estate involved, a company management or residential management estate, looking after, for example, the roads and any greenery, making sure that the pathways are clear so people can walk on it. Right. In terms of flats, as we know, every 3 or 4 years, the places need a repaint. So it could be the corridors, it could be any of the external roofs. Many flats share a water tank, and obviously you don't want the water tank to be infected with any horrible stuff, which would then impact all the flats. So that's what essentially residential management estates do.
And so what has been the problem? Because in essence, they're great. They're taking care of all these things we don't want to take care of and making sure that we are in good shape. But what is it that's caused this big issue?
Well, I mean, over my years in property investing, there are a number of great residential management estates, and other times there are terrible ones. So the great ones really communicate with all the leaseholders or the freeholders. They let you know what's going on, more than just costs.
Yeah.
So, for example, one of my central London flats, the estate management team, just amazing. They send you regular updates. So, for example, coronavirus and so on, that's we have updates about that, and that's like really, really fantastic. So we're very, very lucky to have that kind of communication. They let us know the potential costs that are coming our way in terms of looking after the estate. And then finally, any issues, for example, if there's going to be building work in the flat, they'll let us know, and they'll get our feedback of when people can, if you like, when people would rather they didn't build. Perhaps they've got sleeping babies, for example, and so on.
Right.
Does that make sense? So that's a good,
absolutely, and that's a good one. And I think this is an interesting for a lot of people because so much focus is on actually buying the property in the first place and getting it working, and and then we just imagine everything being easy and simple from then on. And if you have a good management agent like that, it is.
Yeah.
Problem is, yeah.
If I could just say the management estate is different from your letting agent.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Right. Totally different from them. So if you're investing in property, you may see a service charge, a yearly service charge, and that's the money that is paid to make the building or the grounds look good.
Yeah, exactly. So that's really important too, to differentiate. It's not that your letting agent, it's the management agent. But what could happen? What is it you've seen? Because I know that was the good version where they really work with you and communicate with you. So I've had some that haven't been as good, but I know you've seen even worse than I have. So what happens when they aren't great?
So one of the issues is when the management estate are trying to make huge profits from actually the service. So they'll charge huge amounts for paint work, for example. Right. And
but obviously it's $500 an hour, isn't it? Or pounds an hour for painting.
No, that's really cheap.
Oh, right, of course.
Yeah, you're looking at least £2,000 an hour.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
But you get what I'm saying, and what they've done to prevent you from saying anything is they've locked you into a contract with whoever. So, right. Although there are anti-bribery laws, there are other ways that people may get around that kind of those kinds of deals, so that they can use them in managing your properties in terms of the estate management, and then charge you huge bills.
Right. And so what do you do if you realize that the property you now own is tied into one of these contracts and they're charging you through the hilt? Obviously that's going to affect your ROI, that's going to affect your cash flow.
Correct.
What do you do?
Now, the good management company will actually send you in advance the projected costs.
Right.
So when they send the projected costs, and this is where you actually need your renters to actually forward on those kinds of, unless the renter is paying the service charge, by the way. So some people organize it with their renter. That's one way you can deal with it, make it somebody else's problem.
It's always nice, yeah.
And for iconic places, for example, in central London, the renter will probably say, yeah, no, I'll pay it because I want to live here. Although with coronavirus, who knows whether central London is a great place to live anymore. Yeah, because people now want to live as far away from other people as possible.
Yeah, we've seen here in Sweden, we've seen the apartment sales are drying up, and the villas and houses are going through the roof right now.
Correct. Absolutely. Yeah. So you get that. So that's one way of dealing with it, by challenging the finances and asking to see the contracts.
Right. You essentially asking to do an audit of what they're asking you to pay. Yep.
Correct. Yeah. The other tactic that a number of owners of apartments have done is they've got together and they've bought the freehold. So remember, with an apartment, we're all leaseholders. And I think the most spectacular one I've seen is when 50 of the leaseholders got together to buy the freeholder. I mean, that
wow.
To get 50 people to agree is just...
That says something about how bad that management agent must have been.
It must have been, because most people if it's a small amount, they don't want to get involved.
No one wants the hassle. No one wants the pain. But
Yes.
obviously, once it starts being a pain, a 500-pound invoice coming every other week, then people start to feel it.
Yeah, I don't think you'll see it as that badly as £500 a week. You'll probably see 2,000 or 3,000 a year, because they're a yearly bill at worst case scenario. To take this even, so that scenario is very common, what I've just shared. Now, less common is when you have directors of the estate who live on the estate themselves, abusing the rules of that estate. Now, some blocks of flats and freeholder estates, they have what we call a covenant on that block or the estate. For example, in a listed building, the covenant is you're not allowed to change the external windows.
Right.
And if you did, you're liable to either a fine, which the freeholder or the residential management can fine you, or you have to change those windows back. That is example. Other covenants, you're not allowed to run a business from the apartment. So there are different kinds of covenants. There might be a tree in your garden, it's got an order on it, and you're not allowed to cut it down. Yeah. With those kinds of covenants, you may have an estate management where the directors are living on the estate because that's the covenant. They're only those directors are allowed to live there. And they potentially can abuse that covenant to allow themselves to break the covenant. And depending on who they like, they can say, no, I don't like you. So I know I'm breaking the covenant, but I don't like you. And you're breaking the covenant. I'm going to come after you.
Right.
So,
they essentially abuse their power.
Correct. So, for example, we mentioned running a business from your property, but they may be running their businesses, and they may, depending on what kind of character they are, they may essentially lie.
Right.
Most people in these positions, they never lie directly. It's mostly a half truth.
Right.
To get around that covenant. So those are particularly challenging. And on one of the estates I've known, I know people who've been harassed, literally harassed out of their apartments by the directors being abusive of their powers.
Oh, wow. That's horrible. So if you are in this situation, either it being a management company just overcharging, or that a covenant is being abused and essentially people are being harassed or blackmailed, what do you do?
Right. So there's several interesting aspects. When you buy a property, which is a freehold property, and there is an estate management in charge of that estate, you may actually be a shareholder. So when you buy the property, have a look into the solicitor's agreements, and if there's a covenant and estate management, see whether you're a shareholder. Now, by law, you should be able to get an audited set of accounts, as a shareholder. Now, they can still be abusing the accounts and funneling money to themselves. And what you need to do then is to get together with other shareholders of the estate. So if there are, say, 50, we mentioned 50 before, 50 properties, and there is a potential issue, you can call what we know in the UK as an extraordinary general meeting. Right. Now, depending on the...
Basically, just to translate that would be like an extra shareholders meeting.
Correct. It is essentially that, an extra shareholders meeting.
Yep.
And you can then ask the directors directly in that meeting what's going on, if they agree to attend. And if they don't agree to attend, then you can make decisions based on the discussions within that meeting.
Right. And would you be able to vote out the directors if you get, for example, 26 of these 50? Can you switch the board?
Yes, so you do need a majority, and if you don't get a majority, there may be some legal aspects that you can use to deal with the challenge, but it is hassle.
Yeah. Oh, I can imagine.
It is a real
Getting
hassle.
26, 50 people to agree on anything is hard enough. But if you can
Especially
prove,
if some of them don't want the hassle, Daniel,
yeah,
because again, a lot of people, there's that phrase, isn't there, about what is it they say? When good men choose to do nothing, evil prevails. How does
yeah,
that phrase go? I can't remember the.
100%. When good
I think it's evil prevails when good people choose
fail to
to,
act. Yeah.
yeah, not to act. So then they would carry on, and it's purely because, again, that kind of attitude. I still want to get involved. Sometimes the other residents may not want to be attacked by the directors of the estate.
Of course. Yeah. If
Well,
you
so because
raise your hands and then you don't win, then you are now a target.
I don't know if you've ever, I don't know if Sweden's ever been through that kind of politics.
Well, the difference in Sweden is that every like block of flats has a board of directors who are some of the tenants. So the tenants have their own board of directors, which means you basically can have that problem everywhere in each block of flats in Sweden.
Wow, wow. Although generally I find the Swedish quite fair and straightforward to deal with.
Yeah,
Generally,
the only issue we have really, that's if we want to make money off of our apartments. They have the right to say, no, you're not allowed to turn this into a buy-to-let
right?
or a service department. So that's
Sure.
one of the reasons why we invest in the UK, is no one can stop us from actually earning market rents and earning our money.
Well, you may say that. So one of the estates where I have a flat, beautiful, beautiful place, and the residential management, the people in charge are very nice, actually, really wonderful people. But the council does not like you running a serviced accommodation from that. And
Right.
I got several warnings, and then the lady said, "Look, you really have to do something. I'm not going to report you, but if it does occur, here's the fine."
Right.
So I just came to an agreement with the management. It's a very, very fair kind of discussion,
Yeah.
rather than what other, and probably this might happen in Sweden, where they just take you straight to court. They don't even send you a note, and they send the solicitors a letter to you.
That's the thing. In Sweden, they have the right to just say, no, you're not allowed to rent this. And it doesn't matter what structure you use. You can't do it
Yeah,
as buy to let if they say
yeah,
no.
yeah.
So that is a difference.
Sure. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So they said, well, you can rent it out, but not as serviced accommodation, which I think is fair anyway, because knowing some of the residents in that block, there's a single mother, and it's not really fair for them to have different people coming in and out of a flat when she's trying to bring up a kid and so on.
And yeah, it makes sense. It does.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
on to kind of more fun things. I mean, you're working on so many different projects all over the UK. What are you working on right now?
Wow, quite a lot. So honestly, I'm working on right now how to catch a flight to a beach that's warm and I can go swimming.
Nice. Yeah, I like that. I like that.
During the lockdown, I was working on 8 renovation projects plus a few acquisition and refinances. So I'm really, and because of the pandemic that occurred at this time, trying to get lots of builders out to help you. Building work is an essential service, but still there's a lot of builders who do not want to be impacted by the pandemic. And so very little people, and obviously I've had to get involved myself, which has impacted I suffer from eczema, which is caused by a lot of dust and cleaning materials. So guess what I've been doing a lot of?
Oh.
A lot of gardening, a lot of cleaning. But the properties look fantastic. It's Opportunities 4th year, and we've reached, and this is the ironic aspect of properties. So we've reached 1 million if we sold everything in profit, but until we sell everything, we still have no money.
That's the truth.
Do you know
as
what
a
I mean?
property investor. Yep.
Yes, because you use any rental you get to acquire more.
Elon Musk, I remember reading a quote from Elon Musk. He said the same thing. Entrepreneurs are very rich on paper,
yes,
but never have any money.
It's hilarious, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think if people really want to think about how to always have money, there was a teaching that says, when you've got some profit, you split the profit between a property you're going to flip and one you're going to just buy and hold. Yeah. So the buy and holds, the rental ticks over and pays for things, but the flip allows you to pay for a nice holiday somewhere.
Yeah, buy the car and
buy the car, buy the nice family, whatever.
Yeah, buy the nice family. I like that.
So I think, coming back to the challenges of dealing with a slightly corrupt residential management company is very, very difficult. At one stage, I was thinking of bankrupting the company.
Wow.
But because you see all their accounts, right? So if you go to court, generally the person with the most money can bankrupt the other company. But when you do that, you're actually not bankrupting the directors themselves, because they're using your money to fight you in court and all the other people's money.
Right.
So potentially they can increase the service charge. It would affect themselves because they're having to pay the service charge as well.
But they have leverage out of, if it's 50, they have 50 other people supporting their funding of it.
Correct. The result is, though, if they do lose that case, that 50 other people are going to be very angry and come after them, because suddenly they'll see their service charges increase. But that's assuming you have sufficient finances and also sufficient mental strength to carry on going through courses to courts, and dealing with half lies being thrown at you. Yeah. And you might just think, I don't know if you've ever been in this situation, Daniel, where you think, well, I can do this, I can win, but overall, I probably could make a lot more money doing something else rather than losing my money to teach somebody a lesson.
Well, it's typical Pyrrhic victory, right? There's no winners. Even though you kind of win, the result is still that you're both worse off for it.
When you're taking the residential management company, the only person who's worse off is you. So it is a Pyrrhic victory there. And maybe you've got rid of the directors of the estate. It is much better for you to have that extra general meeting, that shareholders meeting.
Yeah.
To see if you can resolve it like that. Another way, of course, to try and resolve it is to go to mediation. And maybe you can reduce costs for dealing with the situation at mediation, but you will still have a certain amount of cost which you may or may not want to pay.
Right.
And by cost, we're talking, like £3,000-4,000 pounds.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So are those all your options? Is that what you basically would say?
Well, you could go after the directors personally, and that way they have to use their money separately. But then you have to deal with different laws.
Right.
So rather than them breaking the covenant themselves, you need to go for harassment laws, which are very difficult laws, especially in the UK, to prove.
Right.
And also take to court. And defamation may be something you can go for if they're trying to turn the rest of the community against you, which I saw happen to one family.
Right.
But they didn't have sufficient knowledge of the law and the English language when they were harassed.
Right.
So that was I mean, they eventually sell their property at a loss,
Mm.
unfortunately, which
Oh,
was very, very sad. You get this in Sweden and not just Sweden, all around the world, where you've got a bad neighbor and you finally just sell up, just because you
give
don't
up.
want that hassle. Yeah,
Mm.
just to have a peaceful life.
But just to summarize then, just to make sure I caught them all now. So the first phase would be to ask for audited accounts and just see if that kind of scares them into line, because they actually have to show what they're doing. If
That's right, because they have fiduciary responsibilities.
Yeah. So if they see that someone is actually looking, they might back off a little bit.
Mm.
If that doesn't
Yeah.
work, you call for a general shareholders meeting and see if you can get some answers from them or get them voted out. The next phase is to take them to court. And then the last phase would be to go after them personally, either in a defamation suit or a harassment suit or something like that.
Mm. There's another way you can go after them, and that's if they're breaking the responsibilities of their responsibilities for running a residential management company. Mm-hmm. So there are a number of fiduciary laws, such as they need to send you audited accounts, and of course it's going to differ from country to country. Yeah. So you just need to be aware of those laws. Look at and speak to your solicitor.
Yeah. Well, yeah, in these cases, you always have to involve your solicitor. This is too complex to try to take on alone.
Mm. You're so right. So yeah, that's your recourse, or you could just say, you know what, I'm just going to sell. Maybe I'll make a few £1,000s and reinvest somewhere else.
And sometimes that's the best. Just burn that bridge and go somewhere where it works better.
I think people in the property world may be used to doing that anyway. So with some of their early JV partners and where things haven't gone quite right, we ourselves, we've had a number of partners, and these days we're very, very careful who we partner with. And I see this a lot in the property world, where so many people fall out and have to break up, go their separate ways, not make as much profit as they would have done normally.
Yeah, we've been through the same a couple times as well, and have chosen to sell off properties that, in other circumstances we would have loved to keep, but it was worth it to kind of say, not walk away from the property, walk away from the partner.
Yeah, well, and it's the stress of dealing with that partner, and even really good partners where both people are good people, but their personalities just clash. Yeah. So you understand A and B kind of personalities. Yeah. The A personality where they're go, and then B personality where they're very relaxed and so on. And both, by the way, both personalities will achieve and make their millions. It's just very different ways of working. So the B personality will say, "You're always pushing. Where you go? What's going on here?" And the A person may be thinking the B person is very lazy, but actually they're doing a lot of internal thinking.
Yeah, it's two different. It's, as you say, it's two different strategies. A's have more of a tendency to run off a cliff and then try to figure out how to fly on the way down, while the B person makes sure that they have a parachute and a glider before they jump.
Absolutely, and both will get down.
Exactly, both will get down, and the only question is how well goes the landing, and then of course who makes it first.
So. But does it matter? And I think that's the challenge with. Sorry, I know we're slightly off topic here, and you probably want to end the podcast soon. But does it really matter how fast you go? No. I mean, who cares whether you take four years to make $1 million, or 8 years, or 2 years? I always think people should go at the speed of their personality rather than increasing extra stress and impacting their health.
Oh, 100%. That's something we talk to all of our students about. That's one of the most common questions we get is, how long will it take? And it's for some people it takes 2 years. For a lot of people it takes 5 years. But even if it takes 10 years,
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah.
What would you otherwise be in 10 years?
Yeah. Probably on one of your podcasts.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they'll have a bunch of properties in 10 years. So then this episode will be super valuable, right?
Wow. Yes, that's great. Any other interesting snippets and questions you'd like to ask, or have we done something amazing here?
I think there is so much we can learn from you, and I'd love to, dive in more. But as you say, we're coming up on our time here for this podcast. But I know that a lot of the listeners here want to learn more from you. So how can they get in touch with you?
Sure. So if you love being on Facebook, I'm friends with Daniel. So you'll see Ben Chai as a friend of his, or you could just search for me directly. But the fastest way is to go via Daniel. Instagram, it's Ben Chai Official. And the best way to communicate with me is on LinkedIn, which is just, again, Ben Chai. What a guy.
Yeah. I'll add the links to your Instagram and LinkedIn, and if you want, your Facebook profile as well in the show notes so that people can reach out to you.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Daniel.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening. Thank you, Ben, for joining us and sharing about that. What do we do with the portfolio we have if everything doesn't go according to plan? So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us. Well, thank you so much for listening to this episode. I hope you really took in and learned what Ben was talking about, and I hope you're never put in that situation. There is so much to know and learn in property, as you see, and this today might help you in a really bad situation. So make sure you take these notes, save it, and get ready for our next episode. So if you haven't yet subscribed to the Momentum Investing Podcast, please do, so that we can send you a notification next week when the next episode comes out. Next week is a super exciting episode. I first met this speaker about 3 years ago when we had Kim Kiyosaki come to Sweden for our Empowered Women event. When we had Kim here, she brought her 3 best friends and they did a full day event together. The one speaker outside of Kim that everyone was raving about because she gave so incredible much value, and she really helped everyone change their way of thinking, so that instead of being stuck in the exact action of what am I going to do, instead lifting their game to being able to get the results they were for. Well, everyone asked us to bring back Seal Stanford. Seal Stanford is Kim's best friend. She is a very experienced coach and mentor, and she's coached me. She is incredible, and I asked her to come on this podcast. Now, this will be a slightly different podcast episode than the ones we usually do, because Seal herself is not a property investor. Instead, she is a success facilitator. What she's done for me and for others is help them completely change their way of looking at the opportunities that are out there, that are available, and helps you raise your energy, getting yourself into a state where your success just comes automatically. Now, I'm not going to spoil any more from the episode because you really, really want to learn from Seal. She's one of the most renowned people in the entire world. She's coached for Blair Singer, for Robert and Kim Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad organization, and all over the world. You will need to hear this because it is so powerful, and the lessons you're going to learn in this next episode will change your life forever. So please make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you again next week.